What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so before I get into this video, I want to give a big shout out to the brother Aaron once again showing love with a donation to the channel via the PayPal. Much respect to him for showing love yet again, this time to Too Raw for TV. Alright, so in this particular video, I want to talk about a game that doesn't get mentioned much. Now, when everyone thinks of the first round series between the Bulls and the Celtics, or should I say Celtics and Bulls, since they were the better team, in '86, everyone thinks about Jordan's 63-point performance. But there was a tremendous game that came before that, which was Game 1. If it wasn't for the historical performance in Game 2, this game would get more attention. So, I'm talking about Game 1 of the first round series between the Boston Celtics, first seeded Boston Celtics, and the 8th seeded Chicago Bulls. Now, coming into this game, the Celtics were expected to sweep the Bulls and to beat them rather badly, probably by at least a margin of 20 points or more on average. The Bulls had a very disappointing season. The year before, which was Michael Jordan's rookie year, Jordan won Rookie of the Year, having one of the great dominant rookie campaigns ever. Over 28 points per game, over 6 rebounds, and I think close to 6 assists per contest, and over 2 steals per game. He shot 51.5% from the floor. The three-point shot wasn't really used that frequently back then. But he also shot, I believe, over 84% from the foul line, which was a big increase over his free throw percentage, I think, in college, which was around 72%. So he had improved tremendously from the free throw line. His second season, the sophomore season, was a definite sophomore jinx. Just 3 games into the season, he broke a bone in his foot. I think it was in, sometimes I'd be forgetting what team it was. Was it Sacramento or Golden State? I'm always forgetting where it happened. It might have been Golden State. But anyway, it was one of those Western Conference teams where he broke his foot, I believe it was. And he missed 64 games. I believe it was 64 games. In those 64 games that he missed, the Bulls went only 21-43. All right, and they had no shot really at making the playoffs. Thankfully, for the Chicago Bulls franchise, the conference was a bit top heavy that year, so the bottom teams weren't really that good. And in the games that Jordan played, the Bulls went 9-9. Or 500, and that was just good enough to push their overall record to 30-52, which just had them qualify for the playoffs. Now, when Jordan came back after the 64 games of injury, for the rest of the regular season, I believe, Coach Stan Albeck was limited with his ability to play Jordan. Bulls management ordered him to play him, I think, only something like 13 minutes a half. And if he had chose to try to play Jordan for more than 13 minutes, they would fire him. As a matter of fact, there was a key game, I think, against the Pacers, where Jordan got rolling. But just as he was hitting big shot to big shot, the 13-minute maximum time period ran out, and Jerry Krause warned Stan Albeck, if you don't take him out the game, we're going to fire you right here on the spot. So they took him out. Thankfully, I think John Paxson made a game-winning shot, which was crucial for them to make the playoffs. Critical. And that happened, and they made the playoffs. Boston, there was no doubt about the greatness of this team. Perhaps the greatest front line ever assembled with Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, and Kevin McHale. 67 wins, second most in franchise history, only to the '73 Celtics that went 68-14. The only reason why that team was not able to win a championship, in my opinion, was because of a serious injury to John Havlicek, which derailed them, losing in the conference finals, Eastern Conference Finals, to the New York Knicks. I believe it was in 6 games. Now, the Bulls were probably expected to lose by, first they were expected to get swept. And they were probably expected to lose by a margin of greater than 20 points per game in this series. And there were still some doubts as to how fully healed Michael Jordan was, because we were only seeing him in a limited capacity. And the leading scorer for the team was Orlando Woolridge, not Michael Jordan. And George Gervin, of course, was there. He was signed during the year after Jordan's injury, I believe. No, actually, I take that back. He actually was signed before the season started. And he was a little bit of a threat to Jordan. Jordan never really took to that signing, but it was a good thing that he was signed, because he kind of filled the offensive, he kind of took away from the offensive burden from the team due to Jordan's being injured. Matter of fact, one of those games, I believe, George Gervin scored 40 points against the Dallas Mavericks in the 85-86 season, which ended up being his last year in the NBA. Afterward, he played a couple of years over in Italy, infamously put on 40 pounds, and retired. But anyway, going into this game, the Boston Celtics possessed, at that time, the man considered to be the greatest perimeter defender in the game, and one of the greatest perimeter defenders of all time, Dennis Johnson. Historians and old heads will recall that the reason why the Boston Celtics acquired Dennis Johnson from the Phoenix Suns and the former Finals MVP in 1979 with the Sonics, Dennis Johnson, is because they had no player at that time that could contain Andrew Toney, and they were very vulnerable to great offensive scoring perimeter players. So they acquired Dennis Johnson, and he was that key, that catalyst for them winning the 84, helped them as far as winning the 84 championship. So Dennis Johnson was expected to at least contain Michael Jordan. That did not happen. And if there was any questions as to his health, well, Michael Jordan was unstoppable in Game 1. It didn't matter who was guarding him. He made Dennis Johnson look like he was stuck in mud. He blew past him. His quickness was unbelievable. This is young Michael Jordan, 23 years old. Physically, just a marvel. The energy that he's played on the court, just made others look mortal. And this was also a Michael Jordan that was relentless at driving to the basket. Whether it was scoop shots, trick shots, soaring dunks, whatever. ISO plays, pick and rolls, whatever the hell it was. Jordan was destroying them. I think he scored 20, I want to say he scored 26 points in the first half in the first game. And the game was very, very close. I think they were only separated by a bucket. Now, ultimately, the fact that other players weren't really getting involved as much for Chicago, coupled with the fact that the Boston Celtics was just a superior team, Boston began to build a lead, and inevitably you could see that Chicago just didn't have as much firepower to keep up with Boston. In Game 1, the final score was 104, 123-104. And for the Boston Celtics, Larry Bird finished with 30 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals. He was 9 of 13 from the floor, 2 of 3 from 3-point range, which was a lot back then, and 10 of 13 from the line. Kevin McHale, who that season, I think it was the first year he took over full-time starting duties from Cedric Maxwell, who was traded away to the Clippers. Kevin McHale had 27 points, 10 rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 10 of 11 shooting from the field, and 7 of 7 from the line. The ageless Robert Parrish, who by this point was 31 years old, I think, about to be 30. No, he was 32, going to be 33. 23 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, 6 of 10 shooting, 11 of 13 from the floor. Dennis Johnson, who was actually being more offensively aggressive than usual. And part of this strategy was that, well, they figured if we have Dennis Johnson be more aggressive offensively, that's going to sap some of Jordan's energy. It didn't really work, but you could argue maybe it did toward the end of the game. But I don't think it really worked. Jordan at that time had these unusual reservoirs of energy, which we really didn't see it starting to ebb at all until when he came back out of his first retirement. That's when we saw, as Bulls fans, that Jordan didn't have the same superhuman reservoirs of energy that he had prior to his 1993 retirement, where before that, Jordan just didn't seem to get tired. Matter of fact, I take that back. You can kind of see a little bit of age slightly catching up with Jordan, even in his last year before he retired, 92, 93. And the reason why I say that is because in 92, 93, Jordan shot a career low in free throws. If I'm not mistaken, I think he only attempted 569 free throws that entire season. I think he attempted 569, made 476 through 78 games. That season, Jordan really didn't go to the hole that much. He was more of a jump shooter. That year, I think he made 81 three-pointers, which was the second most of his career at that point. He was becoming more and more of a jump shooter, which to me, there was no problem with that. I loved seeing a man score. But he wasn't driving as much. He wasn't dunking as much. The one notable dunk I remember during the regular season was those 2 dunks on Lonzo Mourning. Now, by the time the finals came, everyone was saying, okay, Michael, like, he's lost a step. He's not driving to the basket as much. And that talk was part of the reason why. Plus, the fact that the Phoenix Suns didn't have a dominant big like a Patrick Ewing. That was part of the reason why Jordan was relentless in driving to the basket against the Phoenix Suns in that series, averaging 41 points a game. But anyway, Dennis Johnson scored 26 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 11 of 24 shooting. He led the team in shot attempts, which almost never happens. So that was the strategy. Let's get Dennis Johnson going offensively, take away from Jordan's offense by making it work on defense. Danny Ainge, 9 points, 4 of 8 shooting, 1 of 1 from downtown, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. There was only one person that scored off the bench. That was Jerry Seasting, 4 of 5 from the floor, 8 points. Michael Jordan scored 49 points in that game. Had 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. He did turn the ball over 5 times. He shot 18 of 36 from the floor, 13 of 15 from the line. Orlando Woolridge, 25 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 11 of 20 from the floor, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. Dave Corzine, 6 points, 5 rebounds. We didn't talk too much about him. Cal Macy, 5 points, 4 assists, 2 of 4 from the floor, 1 of 2 from downtown. Charles Oakley, 13 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of 9 from the floor. John Paxson, at that point a reserve, Only 2 shot attempts, did not score. Gene Banks, 4 points. Sidney Green, just 2 points. The bench did not contribute much of anything. George Gervin, only 1 shot attempt during the entire game and 1 rebound. So Jordan's 49 points was epic. But you know what? That wasn't even the leading scoring game that young postseason. I believe Dominique Wilkins had a 50-point game either that night. It might have been that same night against the Detroit Pistons. Let's look at something. I remember serves me correctly. Let's go April 17th, 1986. Pistons Hawks. No, Pistons, Pistons Hawks. Let's see. I think it was that night. Yep. 140, 122. Bill Laimbeer, 26 points, 17 rebounds, 8 offensive boards. Isaiah Thomas, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 16 assists. Only 6 of 19 from the floor, though. Kelly Tripucka, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Earl Currington, the now recently departed Earl Currington. You might remember I did a video about his passing last week. 14 points, 8 rebounds. Vinnie Johnson, 16 points off the bench. No. Dominique Wilkins had 28 points that game. Only 9 of 26 shooting. 10 of 10 from the line. So I could have sworn he had a 50-point game in that series. Let's see. Let's go to game 2. Game 2. Isaiah, 36 points, 9 assists. It was game 2. Game 2, Dominique Wilkins scored 50 points, 19 and 28 shooting. Yeah, it was game 2, which was the day before the 63-point game. All right, so to be more accurate, Jordan's 49 points was only the playoff high for a couple of days until Dominique Wilkins scored 50 points. So anyway, we all know what happened in game 2. History. And this game was a lot closer for a lot longer. And the Celtics only barely outlasted the Bulls in double overtime, 135-131. Jordan scored a playoff record 63 points. Though the way that scoring is becoming easier and easier in the NBA, I think that record's going to be broken eventually. Game 3, they just kept the ball out of Jordan's hand. They kept trapping and denying Jordan, doubling him. They just kept the ball out of his hands. Jordan was held to something like 6 of 19 shooting, 19 points, and they just blew the Bulls away in game 3. But still, the first 2 games, man, Jordan really made his mark. So I just want to give this game a little bit more love. Tell me what you guys think.